Going on? It's been a while. Got to pull up some info and thought I would discuss as it. Um, wow, it's happening, right? We'll fix. We'll see if anybody checks in here and let me get this thing set up. What's going on, folks? Um, I guess I've been absent the YouTube, trying to watch what I can, but I've definitely missed a lot. Everybody's still putting out videos, and I'm like, I'm too busy doing stuff to put out videos. So we'll try to get a live in here and see how everybody's doing. Make sure everybody's still upright and breathing, or who's not been black bagged yet. But it's definitely picking up pace. It's almost like exactly like we predicted or have discussed, have hypothesized. Maybe not exactly how, but definitely the what, I guess, has been the big thing. All right, hey, what's going on, Wes? How goes it? It's going well, I guess you'd say. I think I still got potatoes in the ground to pull out. Um, we pulled a couple plants, and I still got potatoes. That's how it's going, Wes. Um, but yeah, we had some good garden results this year. We got a couple flats of tomatoes still from ripening up in the house, so that's going good too. What's up, Liberty Garden? How you doing? How's the? I've been doing fence building last couple weeks for Liberty Garden. Every time I put something together on the fence, I think of you and how much easier you'd be able to do it than what I've done. Hey, what's up, Lance Corporal? Haven't been around much. What's been the predictions? Oh, I'm talking about long, old YouTube stuff. Nothing current. I'm talking about the old predictions from 10 years ago, um, about how it was all gonna, what was coming, the freight train, right? But it's basically, this is my Friday night, so I figured I got some time and I don't have to work tomorrow, so we'll check in here and see how everybody's doing and really put some points out there that some of the people in the know or people that pay attention are probably aware of, but maybe some people aren't aware. Because all you see is Brandon, let's go Brandon, and let's the Wuhan, and that's about the only thing that people talk about anymore. People are talking about still things that don't matter. As much as it's sad, it's people still focused on the wrong things in politics and not realizing that that's really distracting them hard, especially people that are still on board with Trump. People still talking about Trump 24. It's like you people are going to bury your own grave as the guy is laughing at you. But we'll see. I guess that's to yet be determined. Harvested all your potatoes, onions, and corn. Awesome. We didn't have such a great corn crop. I didn't plant any onions this year. I need to get garlic in the ground when it comes to talking about. See, we're going to talking about the garden, and I'm going to get sidetracked of what I wanted to talk about. But yeah, I need to put garlic in, and we're going to do some rye winter cover crop and stuff like that. I got it working on that, and what what else we got? Um, that's all I can think of right now. But we didn't plant any onions, and I still got potatoes in the ground. We've had some snow already, um, so we had a really hard rain. So I'm letting it all dry out again before I pull them. I guess I don't know. I guess I should have. It was just last weekend. It dumped on us. We got like 3 inches of rain. Was the recorded amount in Reno last weekend? It was the most rain. It was like a 100-year rain event for a 24-hour period. It was one of the heaviest rains, for the region, and they did it was almost as much rain as we had had the rest of the previous 12 months. Almost, not quite, but it was a lot of rain, which is very needed for sure. Uh, there was some minor flooding, but because there was tons of places for the water to go, because there's hardly any rivers are way down because it's been a really dry year, there was plenty of places for the runoff to go, so that worked out. But yeah, I got to get the potatoes in. And again, I probably should have pulled them last week. I'm pretty sure Uncle Al will probably come on here and say, you should have pulled those potatoes already. But it is what it is. Hey, what's up, Red October? What's going on? Liberty Garden's got pears. Nice. People just checking in. All right. Let me go ahead and go into what came on primarily to talk about and throw out there to make sure everybody's aware of it. Because again, unless you're talking about Let's Go Brandon or the Wuhan, nobody else cares about anything else, right? Um, the financial system and the financial collapse. The 30-year yield is crossed below the 20-year yield today, or last night, I guess yesterday. You can't hardly find it. I haven't been following a lot of the news because it's almost irrelevant at this point. It's all down. I've been looking at it as far as it's all downhill, so I hadn't been really paying a lot of attention. But this crossed my radar at a pretty high level, and it was that's like that's a big major event, right? That's the only news story I could find on it was on Yahoo Finance. The 30-year yield crossed below the 20-year yield. Um, so basically, that means if you invest on a 30-year bond, you're going to get less in return, right? You're getting less on your return if you invest in that yield, in that treasury bond, which means, again, it has to do with upfront spending your money now, um, getting things now, keeping government debt costs lower in the long term. All these things wrap into things like that. Does that make sense? I know we talked about bond yields and stuff years and years ago, right? And that's one of the things I threw out there way back. Like the whole purpose of what we were looking at here is the financial collapse is the big concern, and the bond yields crossing like that is a big, a big red flag. And there's only one news story about it. Um, and if I'm not mistaken, and maybe if I could find the Wayback Machine, um, I could prove it. But I think CNBC took the 30-year yield, bond yield, off their ticker and replaced it with a 10-year. I thought they used to have the 30-year on there, and now it's not on their ticker on the main page. Um, so when you look for it, the only thing you find is the 10-year, and their bond. They have the bonds up top of their left-hand page, and with the other governments and their bond yields. Um, but that's a huge red flag. I mean, if it's not a big red flag enough that digits on a computer are worth more and more. I mean, when you've got all these cryptocurrencies going up in value, which are basically digits in a computer that have no value other than compared against the dollar, and they just continue to go up and up, that tells you the lack of faith in the system that is going on out there. Um, you know, so if you haven't seen that, again, the only story I found on it was on Yahoo Finance. That's the only place where I saw that they were talking about that issue. It was on I think it was on, came across Twitter's where I saw it the first time, and or maybe a Yahoo, or maybe have been a YouTuber actually. I can't remember. It was just like in the last few hours, uh, and I was thinking about it and thinking about it like I got to get on the YouTube and talk about it at least because this is what it's all about. This is, as I said last year, the Wuhan after it came, after we evaluated in about the May-June timeframe, like, oh, this is just a distraction. The financial system is really the real big issue, right? It's that's the collapse of the financial system is the issue that is covering all this stuff up, and nobody's focusing on it and allowing it to happen. Basically, they're trying to find ways to hide inflation. The inflation is now really kicking in, as everybody's realizing and trying to, and it makes it worse as people are like, oh, it's all Biden's fault. No, it was coming one way or the other. It's scapegoating and keeping people divided. So yeah, the bond yield issue, like a couple of years ago, it was creeping up, right? Because like the 6 month and the 1 year crossed. I mean, think about it. The longer you give somebody your money, the more you should expect in return in the long run, right? Well, that's not the way it's working. It's a breaking of the system, because the banks have to keep that yield low to, one, save the government from having to pay out huge amounts, and for another, to make people keep their money keep people anxious about in the near term and their money, how it's working in the near, 12-18 months time frame. They're trying to keep it in the stock market. They're trying to keep that, hiding that inflation that way, and probably some other things I've not thought about or can't think of all right now. But yeah, it's bad, and hopefully everybody has done what you can with what you got, as we try to talk about, right? So a whole ton of people checked in as I try to ramble on there and get my thoughts out before I got sidetracked again, talking about gardens, right? Because gardening season is over and wrapping up the harvest is all important, and everybody wants to show off and brag about it. But that's definitely, that food's going to come in real handy with the, especially if inflation kicks in. Red October, what's going on? Knife thrower, what is going on? The Tejas man. Hey, Glitch Mod, what's up? It's really sandy where I'm at. All right, Glitch. Uh, Hope you're doing well, Glitch. Hope you stay safe. Hope you get home unscathed wherever you are. I'm sure, man. I mean, so much has happened since the last time we checked in. Speaking of you, Glitch, like that whole Kabul airport fiasco, such as it was. And nobody got fired over that. And the one guy that asked for some accountability on that is the one that actually got fired. That whole debacle is just a red flag that people aren't giving enough credence. Um, Talk about a total train wreck, right? It's something that definitely should not have went down the way it did, but yet here we are. But hope you're doing good, Glitch. I don't know, when's the last time I talked to you? I know you were choosing duty stations, and it sounds like you're probably deployed right now, but I hope you're doing good. Lance Corporal Veteran, you're not a fan of the "Let's Go Brad Biden" chant? It's right. I put out on the Twitter, I was like, whoever this Brandon guy is, or I said, pretty much anybody named Brandon could do anything in the next year. Like, this is your moment. Like, anything you want to do in life, if your name's Brandon, like, now's your time. Let's go. Because if your name's Brandon, you could get elected right now. Like, there's all kinds of things you could do. Like some bullets. What's going on? Mule team showed up. What is going on? Tired of the commercial prepper saying prep for the scenarios now. Buy my food bucket. Right? Buy my food bucket. I've got one. Actually, I got a bucket right here I need to fill up. Um, I mean, there's people out there that haven't done anything still. So there's people out there that need to put in the mindset they need to do something, right? Um, so I guess it's better than nothing, that type of messaging. As much as we give them a hard time, like, somebody has to be out there reaching the masses, right? Because we're not reaching the masses because we're shadow banned and put in a hole or blacked out or whatever the case may be. We're in the one little part of YouTube, our little corner over here. Um, so I guess somebody needs to do that. And if they make a little profit off of it, I can't chagrin that too much. I don't try to. Capitalism is capitalism. As long as you're not getting government subsidies to do it, it's all right. you know. Um, but yeah, the food bucket's not going to really save you for what's coming either. It'll maybe give you a buffer and maybe give you some hope if you have a blackout for 72 hours or whatever. There's cases where that can help, but it's still going to be a very painful reality if somebody's just now buying a food bucket as the case and example at this point in time. If somebody hasn't put more thought and more effort into what they're doing, um, I don't know. It seems like the pain train is imminent, right? It doesn't seem like it's going to be done anytime. Hey, what's up, Adventures Guide? Semper Fi, sir. The collapse is here now. It is. I mean, everybody's. I said it last year. This is it. This is the SHTF event you prepared for. at the beginning of the 2021, I said on Twitter, I was like, 2021 is the year you've prepared for. Don't make it less than what it just because it's not what is in the movies or what you had envisioned in your mind doesn't make it any less real. We're not to the point of, it's not the Great Depression where we're eating horse meat yet, at least not in most of our cases. There might be some people that are. It's going to be localized and it's going to be segmented at first. And you saw the summer of 2020, or what was last summer? Summer of 2020. You saw those events roll out. Like, it's all localized and looks like what to be minor events leading up to bigger and bigger events. Has And 2021 has been in reality 10 times worse than 2020 ever was, right? Everybody was complaining about 2020, and the thing is, it's all government caused. All these people that are trying to fix things or claim they can fix things are the ones making it worse. Um, but people don't want to. Everybody wants to have hope that we're going back to 2018. Everyone wants to go back to 2015, and I know many channels on here and many people have said we're not going back. We're not going back to that type of living, that state of affairs, that state of America is not going back to that. It's ramping up. It's the ratcheting effect, right? Tighten things down, boiling the frog in the pot. All the different analogies you can think of, right? Where there's no going back to that without a full on. I mean, there's no going back to it, period. And we shouldn't want to go back to that because things weren't necessarily that good to begin with. Um, it's just things are better than they are now. We were doing a little bit better than we are now. We were still fighting the banks. We were still fighting inflation. We were still fighting, for scraps basically to be able to subsist. We were fighting for freedoms that were being taken from us, for decades. It's not like it's any better, you know. We'd still be leading that fight forward if we rolled back the clock 10 years now and things went back to normal. We're back in the same fight, in the same causes, and the same issues. Like, um, the idea is, how do we fix the future? How do we change it to fit? Well, the chances are most of us on here can't fix it. We have to deal with it and deal with the repercussions and see what we can build on the other side, right? I think that's the mindset. There you go. Mule Team, more current events. The CME, right? Um, the coronal mass ejection from the sun. I shared that on Twitter today. One of the largest X flares in quite some time. The details are on the Twitter. I follow a solar astronomer, not astronomer, solar weather person on Twitter, and she's been doing this for years, and she's always been sharing uh, how these events tie into the Northern Lights and interrupted communications. And she put out the alert today: ham operators, be aware of this. Could interrupt communications. So that's the level of concern she's at, just as a professional, that how this could affect communications in those 30th 31st time frame. So it's a real deal. It's a pretty big event. um, how big, we'll see, and which side of the earth is it going to hit. I'm not sure if we know that either. I didn't see the details on which side of the earth would be most exposed or time frame. I can go back and look at that, but that's out there, right? That's a coincidental timing, maybe. The 31st being the day that it such as it is, and how certain people hold that day in such regard. But yeah, it's coming, so be aware of that. 08 where glitch mod is at. All right, that gives me an idea. Let me catch up here. Bikes and Bullets TMI. So what do you think will happen? Asked Red. Red, like I said, I don't think it really matters if we know what's going to happen. It's being able to deal with what's going to happen. You know, looks like I'm a ways behind. Just keep buying spam, rice, beans, and bullets, right, Mule? Hey, and there was some good news on the bullet front. Palmetto State Armory brought over, or is contracting to bring over all the steel case ammo manufacturing that got banned They're looking to bring that manufacturing capability over to Palmetto State and produce steel cased ammo out of Palmetto State Armory. That's pretty awesome. Not that I shoot steel case or an AK, but that's still pretty awesome uh, overall. Um, yeah, that was good news. I'm sure you saw that, Mule. All you other AK fans out there. So if they get that done as part of, I guess there was some, they got to wrangle who's going to ship it, how they going to get it through customs. There's tons of paperwork that probably goes with that, bringing over that equipment and stuff. But hey, that's a positive, and that should help ammo prices and availability for the AK guys in particular. Joe Primal, what is going on? Who was that? Dancing Israelis. Oh, what's up from Vegas? Hey, get out of Vegas while you can. You Vegas guys, good to see you. Thanks for checking in. I don't think I've seen that name before, but I think I kind of get what you're talking about. Keep awareness on things. Stock up on propane, right? Right, bikes. Fuel costs are expected to continue to rise as we've pretty much shut down all American production of fuels, right? Joe Primal, how you doing? Welcome to the chat. Oh, now Mule's going to the next. See, Mule's trying to get ahead of me here in the side chat. I'm trying to what's the word? Expand upon my thoughts here, and you're trying to hit point after point after point after point. Who's running this chat? That goes back to the whole YouTube. I wish we could get in the old Google Hangouts and really have a real chat instead of just talking by ourselves a lot. But yeah, the St. Kyle Rittenhouse is probably going to get off pretty scot-free um, from his trial, and they're already on the social media. The communists are pretty apoplectic about the whole thing. Um, I guess it's one of those things you don't know who's putting who's putting the message out there on that side. With some of the messaging, they're talking, they're going to riot again, they're going to do this and that. It's like, it's Wisconsin. Why do you care? You know, unless you live in Kenosha or you're directly affected, with if you live there, like in that area region, why do you care? Like, why would you riot? And they're talking about Portland in particular. Portland, like, okay, that's if they're making it about the greater political communist movement, right? That's what they're making it about. So we'll see if they get their agenda in line, and if and when Rittenhouse, who should get off, does get off, um, with all charges dropped, hopefully. I mean, it shouldn't get through. I mean, how do you get with all the video evidence? We all kind of assumed the DA was politically charging him because it was politically necessary. But after all that video evidence, all that storyline was laid out, how do you still charge the guy and take it to court? How do you take it to trial? How? Like, criminally speaking, like, that's just bizarre. I'm sure Bikes can talk about that a little bit if he hasn't already. I haven't seen a Bikes video in a minute. But yeah, they're planning on rioting and burning things down if he does go free, or when he does go free. I think he should. Let's see here. Joe wants to see some Northern Lights, right? It would be some pretty cool. Hey, what's up, JJ? That's exactly Tamitha Scove, I think's how you say her name. The weather lady, the soul of the weather lady. How you doing, JJ? Good to see you. JJ's probably been trolling or lurking on the Twitter. Zombies are coming. Oh goodness. If it's from Vegas, it's Tony. Tony ain't in Vegas. What are you talking about? Tony's been um, countrified, I guess. The tactical Tony channel has went so far in 10 years. It's just it blows your mind, right? And a lot of people made, think about all the grief people used to give Tony whenever he was trying to make his life better, and he was always trying to improve things over the years, and doing the tactical Tony channel and just ranting, and everybody used to give him just the biggest hard time, right? And everybody's time and place is different. And he finally made the move, and it's just like, hopefully the haters he got one over on the haters for sure on that. I don't think Tony's ever going back to Vegas. Bikes and Bullets is there alone and unafraid now. Uh-oh, there are Bikes says there are remanufacturing ammo companies growing. Their product quality can only get better. I just scored 1,045 for 400. Also, some like reloading companies. Um, Speaking of local ammo sources, there's a local ammo. Uh, Dang, is it Battleborn Ammo? I think it's called out of here. That's manufactures ammo near Carson. Um, they have expanded their warehouse capacity. That's pretty much the rumor or the word on the street. They have grown production or expanding in such a way that they like doubled their warehouse space for all their components to make ammo. Um, Battleborn ammo, is that right? It's something like that. Battleborn Battleborn Arms. I can't remember. I think Tony saw him at SHOT Show one time too. Um, Battleborn Bullets, maybe. Something like that. I can't remember. But anyway, they've expanded their capacity in manufacturing and are doing what they do, right? Think way too much alike, right? Right, Mule. We're all the same wavelength. We're all tracking the same news, right? Um, Finding the things under the radar. Um, and while I enjoy the "Let's Go Brandon" thing, just like I said earlier in the chat, there, like it's been kind of overdone. I still enjoy it to the fact that people took it and run with it. You know, it was like it was obvious. It was an obvious attempt by an on-scene anchor to try to keep her story going because she was covering a race. Like, you don't need that in the middle of your race coverage, right? And it's just like everybody forgets the racer's name. It's about it was about him running the race, Brandon Brown winning the race, and he's forever going to be known as the guy who was in front of the Joe Biden chant, right? Right? Like his whole win at Talladega is like gone. It'll never be remembered, but that whole chant will be last forever, right? It's kind of funny how history treats us. Mike says there's a channel on YouTube that does the full hearings of the Rittenhouse case. That should be interesting. Uh, I mean, it should be on court access or whatever, Illinois, or I guess that'd be Wisconsin. Wisconsin. I mean, a lot of cases like that are publicly broadcast online now, so I don't know if they do that. Just live stream it. If it's on YouTube, it's probably live streamed by the state as well. Any reason to steal, says Red, right? And it's kind of funny how it's going to work, Red, because if he gets acquitted here in the next month or so, it's kind of outside of riot seasons because it's a little chilly, especially up in Wisconsin, um, especially in Portland. It's be rainy and it's kind of outside that prime protesting, white boy summer type deal. See how the communists handle the winter. Oh, you follow on YouTube, JJ? Cool, right, right. Rob Painless, what's up? How's Tejas? Things seem to be going all right, I guess, other than getting overrun at the border. And what was some other Texas news? Well, you had Ungrateful Peasant came to visit. I saw that. I was like, touring the country, and I'm missing out. Dang it. But I hope you got to see Wayne down there, Rob. That's pretty cool. Rittenhouse is going to walk. We've known him that long, and he's one of the biggest winners I know. Who are you talking about, Mule? Are you talking about whiners or winner? I'm not sure who Mule's talking about. DeVincent W. It's been years. Yes, sir. I recognize the name, but I can't remember. I imagine you probably did YouTube videos too. It's like the rest of us. It's like we do a video like once a year now. That's like our limit. When we get the urge, it ain't like the old days. That your channel name does ring a bell, Vincent. But welcome to the chat. Yeah, Joe, I need to. It's reloading season now. It's that time of year where inside it's darker outside earlier. Time to get some reloading in. It is the season. And ungrateful peasant joins the chat. Look at that. Speak of the devil, exactly. Hey, what's up, Wayne? Definitely had a good road trip, it looks like. Okay, I think I've caught up in the chat. You're calling Tony a winner, right? Right, Mule? I mean, one of the biggest winners on as far as people that delivered on YouTube and did what they set out to do and did what they said. Like, hard to beat what Tony did, right? I think we can all say that. As much as people, gave him a hard time for being harebrained or a little reactionary, a little over the edge, like, hey, he did it, right? What are you doing? Same thing you've been doing, sitting in your basement, typing on the computer. Right? Awesome story. Bikes has put the link to the channel that covers the Rittenhouse trial. Check that out. I would imagine it's probably on tomorrow. And I guess it's got videos of what's been going on. They were trying to get it so that the defense couldn't call the communists that were shot victims, or couldn't call them looters or rioters or something like that. Couldn't call them what they were. They wanted to call them victims or something like that. Referred to them as victims, but that was one of the discussions going on at that trial. So the Rittenhouse thing's a catalyst, right? It's something that they're going to use to try to make people do reactionary things, keep the narrative going of a divided America. Um, white privilege is being thrown around a lot, even though the case of the story is completely different. The one lesson of Kyle Rittenhouse is always be armed, right? The lesson is always be armed. Boom. Know how to use your weapon, employ it effectively, right? Somebody put on Twitter yesterday or the day before, um, somebody had said something, they were being derogatory, right? And they said, well, with Rittenhouse, his record, and he's a loose cannon. He'll probably grow up and be a cop. And somebody commented, "Oh no, he shoots too well to be a cop." And I just quote tweeted it, and I was like, "Oh, that's look at his number of shots fired to hits. Yeah, he's way better trained than most cops, way more effective at least, and actually had his life threatened. Actually was living, was in threat of serious bodily harm or death when he did what he did, right?" So I'm just going to hang out and comment on what you guys comment. Yeah, they wanted to refer the criminals as victims, right? Hey, have a good one, Wayne. You're still driving, right on. And Rob is redacting messages before I even get to it. Goodness. So that's what they decided, Mule. All right. And Wayne and Rob are having a one-way conversation about something. Right. I got you, Rob. I'm tracking. So yeah, the yield curve and the financial system overload, the thing that nobody's paying attention to, that's probably most impactful on everybody. People are paying attention to rising prices, but they're focusing the blame on the wrong place. Everybody's wanting to focus on this is all Biden. All the I did that, all the I did that stickers that you see on gas pumps now. Everybody's sharing, that it's all Biden's fault for higher gas. It's like you guys are putting blame on the wrong spot. Be real disappointed. So we'll see how gas, all those prices again. It's going to fluctuate, obviously, but I don't know. How can it get any better, right? If they, what are we at like? And it's funny how the budget deficit and the debt has trended almost exactly how people predicted. Just not happened the way people predicted, right? It didn't happen with just annual spending. It happened with these big stimulus pushes, right? These big stimulus spending sprees. Everybody. I mean, we were at what, 19 trillion or 16 trillion when in 2016, right? And I remember putting it out like, oh, it'll be 25 trillion when Trump gets out of office, and we were dang close. And now we're at like 28 trillion, like that, like boom, and it's just like throwing money out the window. And where's it all going? It's getting they're hiding the inflation in the stock market and other places, and prices, right? That's where a lot of that inflation's going. Stuff that the average people we have no ability to see it, or we just have to react to it, right? It's craziness, though. Trillions, over 10 trillion in the last 4 years, just disappearing somewhere in the economy, and we haven't even got to the point where all the overseas money comes in, because as the dollar gets devalued more and more, all that overseas cash, all the overseas investment is going to get dumped back into the U.S. And that's what really is going to drive that inflation crazy. That's what to look out for. That's a big fear, I guess I should say. If that happens, like that's trillions of dollars sitting out offshore that have basically been in a holding pattern all these years. That once it becomes less and less valuable, it just gets dumped back into the country. Oh yeah, you saw that mule, the talk that floating that idea to give the any illegals, anybody whose family was separated, $450,000. Like, come on, man, who makes this stuff up? How is this even considered? How do you even, like, in serious conversation, consider that? It's bizarre, the ideas people have. Other than they have a goal that is nothing short of um, sedition. I mean, what else would you call it? Collusion with the bankers. That's the only other thing it could be. Harebrained ideas like that. That's collusion with the bankers. Um, is the only way I can explain that, because it makes no rational, logical sense. Stuff like that. Oh, Rob's got a question. If you ask it, we'll see what happens with Rob's question. Um, but yeah, they're finding any way they can to hide inflation through all these different bills, payoffs, all this stuff, right? Oh, here comes Rob's question. What happens to the cash that people have stacked in anticipation of bank failures and government seizing bank accounts? Cash go bad, spend it quick, etc. Well, that's a good question, Rob. I think you mean like what cash people have tucked in actually in their bed, not in the bank. Because if you have cash in the bank, it's just digits on a computer, right? You don't actually have the cash, the actual dollar bills. And that's why the government has continually more and more been moving more and more quickly, as quick as they can without really causing a panic, toward a cashless system, because they want to make that less valuable. There's an inflection point, and they talked about it in the fall of Weimar Germany. There's videos out there. I don't know which one it was, and there's a couple that actually explain the effect, where people who had that cash stuffed away in jars and under their bed, who had experienced inflation in the past, there's a point when prices get to a point, and where people, they've slacked this money away. There's a point when prices and inflation are at such a point that people just pull all that money out and just it's worthless. So they just throw it at whatever they can get, and it's usually essentials, right? It's usually going to be food and gas, whatever the essential things are. That's where they're going to put that money, because the money's not worth anything, so they're going to put it towards the most valuable thing they can find at the time. And that's what really hits inflation hard, is when all those you know people that have cash socked away just start putting it, flooding the system, because they see the writing on the wall that this stuff is going to be worth less tomorrow than it is today, and considerably so. We're not talking 1 and 2%. We're talking 10, 15, 20%, right? Um, and that just floods in the system. Um, the more government can do to make cash not valued, or not seen as legitimate, or seen as a threat, which they have done consistently over the last 20, 30 years, right? They've made people move more and more towards seeing cash as a domestic tourist use only. They've went towards, the freeloading, everything is convenience on your phone, everything's electronic. They're pushing that really, really hard this whole last year and a half. We're in a coin shortage, we're in a cash shortage, no cash. Some places didn't take any cash. Some places still, in the last year and a half, we're only taking cash only. There was a dichotomy there. There was a interesting some places you could actually go where they wouldn't take anything but cash um, at certain periods of time during the last year. But yeah, Rob, I think. And let me see the rest of your question, Rob, since we're talking in anticipation of bank failures. Spending quick is the big concern for inflation. Bank failures, I don't know that we're going to see a bank failure. They figured out in '08 what they need to do to get around it. And remember, the people in Washington are beholden, and they are not going to let that happen again, if that makes sense. I don't know if they can avoid it. I don't know if it's necessarily a for sure they can't make it happen. Let it happen, but they're going to do everything they can because really, if you go back to how the stock market crashed last year, um, if they weren't beholden to the banks, they would let that ride out instead of having all this other nonsense go on. Same thing in '08, right? Um, the banks had to pay their piper for their own mistakes and their own bad bets, right? But no, they didn't. They got off scot free. um, Same thing with the housing market. I think it was JJ talked about the housing market here. Um, Somebody commented on about the housing market being really, squishy. The housing market has benefited from the inflation of California and the big cities, and all these people rushing out of the big cities, and all these people rushing out of urban centers because they were able to remote work for the last year and a half. Um, so a ton of property values were affected by that. People just they talked about it up here at Tahoe. All these people from the valley from San Jose that were able to remote work and telecommute, all of a sudden we're going up to Tahoe and getting all these plush pads, and not necessarily directly in the lake area, but in the area, in the mountains, in remote areas. So they were dumping all this cash into rentals and buying properties, of course, because they were moving out of the cities. They're like, I can remote work. I'm not going to live here in San Jose and spend $1 million on a house, right? When you can go up to Tahoe and get something, I don't know, 600,000 that you can is livable. Um, only makes sense, right? So I don't know how that'll tie into it, but all those markets overlap at some point. It's not like I know the answers, but I know they all look unstable, and the destabilization is the big concern. Because when things are unstable, people get nervous, and people get nervous, they get fearful, and they get fearful, they make bad decisions, and especially if they haven't thought about it before, if they haven't thought about a plan or about what they're going to do in the if X, Y, or Z happens, people make really bad decisions. Um, so, or they freeze in fear, right? They freeze in fear and they just don't do anything, and then they get railroad, and they get steamrolled, and they just get run over. Um, yeah, I don't know. I don't know, Rob. You got a lot of tough questions there, but people are going to spend it quick. I think that's historically kind of what people do in inflation. People that have cash like under their mattress, that's what they do. They spend it quick because they're holding it, for if you're putting cash under your mattress or in your, under the ground or wherever you put your cash with your silver and gold, right? You're holding that onto that for the worst case scenario. And if your other means of cash flow go out or eliminated, right? Um, that's one of the big concerns I think too when you look at all this mandates, job mandates, work mandates that are going on. People have a little bit of cash so they can tide themselves over in between jobs potentially. But if that gets to the point to where they don't have any options, like the savings runs out and these all this stuffed away cash gets dumped in the economy, like then it kind of has a reverse effect and everything spirals out. It's this destabilization. Spend it now before it turns into TP. Paper owned by the Fed, right? Liberty Garden, right? There you go, Liberty Garden. You keep some of the good times, unload it in the bad times. It's exactly what people are planning on, saving it for the worst of times. You got it way ahead of me. Joe, good. So Joe has a good point. Joe says yes, but everybody expects more inflation, and what everybody expects never happens. True point. It never goes out the way we exactly think. So that's a good point. And I think the thing to remember, inflation is the friend of the bank to a certain point. The inflation allows the bank to stay in power because it continually prints more money because people need more and more of it. The government needs more and more of it to produce so they can stay on top, right? Um, so a little bit of controlled inflation keeps the bank in power. Um, Deflation empowers the people and the workers, which the banks don't want. The banks are always going to fight against that. The banks are always going to favor inflation. I think is the only thing about what you're saying there, Joe, that I think um, if the banks lose control somehow and they can't inflate things and it does deflate, then you get a deflationary system market going on. Uh, who knows how that destabilization really? I don't. I mean, there's a guy on YouTube that does some discussions, and he has a guy on there, and they kind of have contra opinions about that. One says hyperinflation is going to be coming, and another says no, deflation is going to be more likely scenario. And they did a video and they talked about it. I wish I could remember what that was now. Um, but the biggest thing is the people in charge, the people that are running it, the banks, want inflation. They get power off of inflation. So they're going to push inflation. If the banks lose control, I think what you're saying, Joe, is true. Uh, what we expect to happen doesn't always happen, but as long as the banks are in charge, I don't see it changing. If that makes you know what I'm saying. Um, to be determined for sure. I mean, there's not 100% outcome ever of anything the way it turns out. So Rob says the trick is to time the point where the good times turn to bad times and not unload it prematurely or wait till the point of no return. Yeah, you really got to evaluate what you're really putting your money into, and like you're saying, Rob, you just got to know. Not that are there any good times left? JJ's a good tourist. Loves being a tourist. Hey, what's up, Saint? How you doing? Good to see you checking in. And diversified, Joe. There you go, Joe. And that's the thing. Not being tied up, just having. I mean, in an hyperinflation environment, you're going to need a lot of cash, right? um, but if you can convert anything that's valuable and being diversified to things, and that's where the gold and silver come in, right? And other hard goods, things that actually hold and have value, um, real things, food, animals, water, all the things that we've talked about and everybody talks about, right? All those things and having a diversity of those things. Um, it's like I look at my animals, I'm like, that's money in a lot of ways. It's a barterable good that becomes more and more valuable the more and more unstable things get. But there's a limit because it really kind of depends on where you are. Because like around me, I look around me, there's animals everywhere. You drive by every single plot of land, like somebody's got some kind of animal that they're getting value off of, right? So the demand for those animals outside of me being able to subsist off of the value. I mean, there's a certain monetary value that goes down. Now, you get into the heart of Carson City, it's like there's a whole market right there. That's like the old days. You take your animals to market and you get profit. So, you know, there's a untapped market, unrealized market for a lot of things. Like you talk about real goods that if you diversify properly, and properly is probably a bad word, diversify what you can. I wouldn't say properly necessarily because that whole, the financial planner diversification role is just throw that out the window, because 20 years ago, any financial planner that you could get a hold of that was certified the most they would ever tell you was go no more than 10% gold or silver and hard metals, in your portfolio, right? Like that was 10% is a lot, like 5%, okay, if you really want to, but like they were holding people down like 1 to 3% of actually hard metal to go in your diversification portfolio. It's like, think about the value of what the price of silver was in 1999, um, or gold for that matter. Um, I don't know. I think I would try to hold on to a little more than what people. And it's one of those things. Everybody was riding. Everybody's been riding these markets for so long, and going riding through the downturns because you had the 2000.com bubble, right? The '08 crash. You had the crash last year. Um, People have gotten so used to taking these hard hits and working themselves steadily back up. It's like at some point it's just going to stop. The Ferris wheel's going to stop. You're going to be stuck at the top and not able to get off. And I guess it should be the opposite, where you're at the bottom but you're able to get out. It's kind of the opposite of the market. If you can get out at the top, get out. But the Ferris wheel's kind of the opposite. I guess you're stuck when you're on the top. Kind of a reverse analogy. But diversify, yeah, Joe, exactly. Diversification. Right, JJ rushed out of the cities in the 90s. Good call. Warsaw, what's up, Warsaw Patriot? Destabilization like Yugoslavia and Bosnia. Um, I think our scale is going to be the scale and impact in America is going to be so much worse than those places. um, One city in America destabilizing will make Bosnia look like a cakewalk. If multiple states destabilize, it'd be really bad, right? Um, I don't think we don't realize how good we have it and how bad things can go because of people who have they're not compatible in any way living right next to each other in America, much more so than other countries. Um, I mean, like totally opposites, just living right down the street from each other and getting along for all in these times of peace and these times of good and these times of no want. Nobody has a want for anything in America. Having neighbors and your people right down the street that are completely different in all ways, in every imaginable way, but not having any friction, right? Things start to destabilize, that goes bad really quick. And it's all over America. It's not, it's just, and it's the cities, it's multiplied. Um, Bosnia Herzegovina, I think, would be, it won't even compare. You can't, the collapse of a civilization is nothing, is just on a grand scale more than what happened in those countries, Warsaw. I mean, those are case examples of what you could look at localized, but on the grand scale, in the grand national picture, like, you can't compare it. It's just not comparable. It's just gonna be much more catastrophic, much more people affected. The world will be affected by a U.S. destabilization. Bosnia, the world's only affected because the world wanted to get involved. Bosnia could have went down, and unless you were in the area, like, nobody really cared, right? People only cared because they wanted to. I think so. That's my point. That's my kind of my thoughts on that. It's going to be much, much worse. Yeah, right. Warsaw history will repeat itself, and the only closest analogy, the only idea we have is the Roman Empire is the only thing even close to what could happen here, I think. Um, but it's like the historians talk about. There were people in France and in Southern Europe and those places that were called themselves Roman, 100 years after the collapse of the Western Roman Empire. Until that really fizzled out. And the Eastern Empire was still going. Um, so historically speaking, like, you could see a divide like that in America, which we kind of think is imminent. Um, but just the effects, globally, will be much greater because everything's so much more interconnected. China didn't really get affected by the collapse of the Roman Empire, for example. I mean, they probably lost some trade. There's probably some trade routes that were lost at time or whatever, but the collapse of Rome created a vacuum for other people. Same thing will happen with America. There'll be a vacuum created for other people. We just don't want to fall in the vacuum and get sucked in around. You know, we really got to, going back to kind of the original thought was like, we can't affect the outcome, but how do we survive the outcome and get through it to the other side? What do you want on the other side? is really what a lot of us have to figure out. How do we promote the ideas that we know are right on the other side of all this? You know, I don't know if anybody in Rome, in the Roman Empire, was thinking about that. When this thing collapses, what do we want to produce on the and make on the other side? I don't know. Bigger thoughts. That's a whole different chat. That's a whole other chat. We talk about stuff like that, and we've had that discussion I think before, but that was a few years ago when things weren't quite as there. Yeah, good point. Bikes going to a cashless digital economy makes everything much more controlled by the government. Gets rid of the black market. Gets rid of the free market essentially, because the black market is the free market. So going to a digital economy is almost wholly about government control, but ultimately about the banker control because the bankers thrive off of it. The more control the bank has over everything, the more power they have, and that's what they want. Strategies to get through this, to get through the destabilization, to get through the economic collapse, to get through. Um, I think that's what we've talked about for years, Lance Corporal. Do the things you can locally to build, to build networks and community to thrive and survive as best you can in hard times. And I think I just said that a second ago too. Is what do we want to promote on the other side? So you were a little ahead of me, maybe, or maybe we said at the same time. Um, know what you want to promote. Ultimately, America is supposed to be about freedom and the promotion of it. We lost that a long time ago, right? Um, I don't know that there's going to be enough of us to come out the other side and promote a system like that without getting crushed from outside influences or even just the hardliners that potentially could take over in a lot of places. Um, it's going to be interesting. But I think getting through it is like what everybody's talked about, building the network, finding ways to sustain yourself, sustain others, build a community, a network, build free markets, uh, and to get through it. And because if you don't know what's coming, it's hard to know how you're going to get through it. So, um, like I said earlier, this is the SHTF you have. It's not the one we thought or the one that everybody like hypothesized or dreamed about, but it's the one you have. So you have to work through it as it gets thrown at you. The same issues are there. All the things are there that everybody's talked about, but it's not as dramatized as everybody was thinking it would be. You have WROL in places. You have extreme rule of law in places. You have extreme rule of law everywhere, really. Where you're having a criminal police state, you have a financial collapse. You have all these things overlaid on top of each other as well, plus natural disasters rolling in weekly, if not daily, throughout the country. Um, so all those things are happening, and being prepared to get through each one in its own way, because they each have their own needs, right? You have to you have a different plan for each one, right? And that's when we go back to the Midwest prepper pyramid, right? Back when Guns Coast to Coast was the Midwest prepper, he did that triangle, prepper triangle. I called it the Midwest triangle, but I did a video on it as well to kind of discuss that with him. Um, the base of your triangle, the base of your preparedness, the base of your threats is all the daily, the weekly, your annual stuff. Crime, your normal everyday robbery, your normal everyday carjacking, um, your hurricanes, your tornadoes. Usually, the higher you go up in that triangle, that pyramid, the more dangerous it is, the less likely it is, right? Unless you're in certain places where hurricanes and tornadoes are more likely. And he had it divided up, and I can't remember how it was divided, but we also talked about. I've talked about, you want to divide it into man-made and natural was one way to look at those things. But when you got all those things going on at one time, it gets into your OODA loop, right? And the OODA loop, something that we've talked about. It's hard to observe, orient, and react when you have multiple things that are overwhelming. Financial collapse, extreme rule of law, and a natural disaster all going on at the same time, right? Um, sometimes those things happen all together at one time anyway. But just enact what you can to survive and get to the point to where you can reassess um, effectively, I guess. Everybody should have been doing that the last year. I kind of want to talk about this at the beginning, and I got off track. Like I said, this whole year has been about getting through a SHTF event on our in our own right, but getting through it in a way to find yourself in a better position on the other side, right? Um, so hopefully everybody's been doing those things and realizing that we're not going back to normal. This isn't like a hurricane. The hurricane's over, you go back, you rebuild, you're back to normal before the hurricane. Where we were in 2019, we're not going back to there after we get out the other side of this. I think that, and I think I said that earlier, kind of. Now I want to emphasize that. Um, Again, we're not going back to normal, so it's unlike regular disaster events where you go back to normal. What we're going through now is a journey to the other side, and we're getting there. I guess to answer your question there, Lance Corporal, we're getting there. Obviously, we're working through it, and everybody's answer is a little bit different. Between where you are in life, like those older in age versus younger, where you are in your job, career wise, all those things factor in how everybody approaches it differently and what your needs are. Some people have the need to move across the country or to move, especially like out of California, right? People have been doing those things because they see the need to do that as part of their best strategy. Um, a lot of people don't think of it in those terms, like we're talking about it here. In reality, that's what they're doing. They're reacting to get through this in the best way and developing strategies to get through this. And some people, that's their strategy. Now that they've got this mandate out there and this extreme rule of law situation, where it's not rule of law, it's just mandates and it's just executive decrees that are going out, you have to re-strategize, right? Like, how long can I drag this out to buffer the final effects of having to deal with job loss and loss of income and stuff like that? Have you put things in place already, like food and water storage and things like that? There's still things like mortgages tied up into a lot of this. There's so many things that could happen still further as far as the extreme rule of law goes in the future that still are hanging out there. There's and people have talked about this. Nobody knows if it's being discussed, tying these mandates to government pensions, tying these mandates to many types of lifelong events. Getting into your people are having problems getting to their doctor or getting to doctors. Period, because of mandates, um, which is just insane when you think about it. Like, who in their right mind thinks you shouldn't be able to see a doctor because of this? Like, this is like the Wuhan is like the least pandemic of pandemics, right? But yeah, so we're working through strategies. I think, Lance Corporal, when you think about it, and everybody's just doing it a little bit differently depending on where you are and what you do. Let's see where I'm catching. Hey, Redneck Prepper, what's going on? Yeah, silver and old school mechanical stuff, right? It's better safe than sorry, right? And we're just talking about the EMP earlier, or the CME event, Redneck. A pretty big CME event going on, 30th, 31st. So that old school mechanical stuff might be pretty valuable come Monday morning. you know, but anything that, and when it comes to things like that, Redneck Prepper too, you have to be able to work on what you know. I know, like you and bikes, and I'm forgetting names now. Another guy out in North Carolina I used to watch a lot. I can't remember his name. Mechanical guys. Um, the one guy, he did his video after the hurricane in North Carolina where he had his generator running and he was setting things up. After the hurricane went through, and just he was getting by day to day in the situation. He kind of did a video on that. But people with mechanical know-how know those things like you're talking about. If just anybody gets old functioning mechanical items, but doesn't know how to fix them or tweak them so that they work properly, it's a limited value, right? Um, so just don't do things just because you want to prep. It's like to the garden things. Going and buying seeds is one thing, but knowing how to plant them, grow them, that's why you got to practice, right? It's just like when you get a mechanical item, you got to learn how to fix it and work on it and tweak it, especially the old school stuff. Old school carburetors, working on those things so that they function max efficiency. Same thing with seeds, knowing how to plant them, when to plant them, which ones need to be grown indoors at first and sprouted and then taken out and put in the garden, or all those things. It's the same thing with mechanics. And not anybody can just go get a 65 Chevy and run it. It takes some skills to keep that stuff functioning to where it's a long term benefit. But if you got skill to use that stuff, definitely do it. You guys are just rolling. But remember, bikes, I will take your gold and silver for eggs and milk. Just so we're clear, I give you eggs and milk, you give me gold and silver. We're good. I think the thing, and I kind of saw that comment up there, gold and silver will always have some value, and that's the prepper side of it, is that it will survive the collapse of the dollar. But it'll always have a value within a system, an economic system too. Vis-a-vis, China just bought like 30 billion, or was it 30 million tons of gold in the last year, was the latest release. China's been stacking gold to the rooftops. These countries still value it. It still has use in electronics and everything else. It is a useful in your hand item, just like any other physical item that has a value, right? It doesn't have to be gold and silver. People talk about ammo all the time. Ammo is barterable. 22 rounds are going to be a barterable item, right? You're going to be able to trade 22 rounds, 9 mil rounds. I've got 9 mil rounds. I don't even have a 9 mil anything. So that is what it is, right? Anything like that you're going to be able to barter is going to be valuable. What value it's going to have is going to depend on your local economy, and especially in a transitory, non-bank ruled system. If we get into that free market where it's more barter than it is any type of government denominated currency, that stuff's going to have a value of some sort. It's going to be determined. It could be determined by many different factors. Who knows? We're in Nevada. There's silver and gold in the ground here still. There's a mine just in Virginia City still going for gold and silver. So there's still that stuff going on. So we're in a kind of inflationary environment for silver. If things were to really fall apart, where the silver would be less valuable, I think, in places like this than it is in other places where it's really rare. You just don't find it outside, in the neighborhood. It's not a common thing to go mine it in certain areas. And so it's going to be more valuable in those areas, I think, than it is like here where it's plentiful, I guess would be the way. So there's just a high supply of it, But that's going to be for anything durable. It goes back to the definition of money. So anything that's real money will do well. Salt has been real money. It's not as durable as a lot of things, but as long as you keep salt dry, and really even if it gets water, as long as you capture it and crystallize it back down, it's still salt. All those things have been money through history. Salt. What was the other things? Salt's always the good example because it's something we just don't think of. But because it is durable, divisible, salt is salt no matter where you go. It's useful. It still has a value outside of money. It's useful as money. So that's a rant about the financial. We did so many videos 10 years ago about this. Joe, income generating real estate is hard to beat, right, Joe? And in a transitory system, if you have somebody that needs to live, in your building or do business in your building, and you can get an income from them, no matter what it is, even if you're bartering for that building space, whatever they're, can do, your rental property may just provide you trigger pullers in the future. Land is good, JJ, and the fact that it's always going to be useful. It's putting that land to use, I think, that's the hard trick. Or selling it to somebody that In the ultimate end, when you need to cash that in basically for real money, whatever the money is you're going to get for somebody that's going to put that land to use. Somebody's going to buy that land from you to put it to use. But buying holding land is a strategy for investment. It's pretty long term. Hey, what's up? Walter Davis, what's going on? Good evening. Good to see you, Walter. I'm way behind in the side chat again, I think. But good to see you guys checking in. Thanks for hanging out. We've been rolling for quite a while. I wasn't planning to go this long, but we're hitting all the key points. This is what it's always been about. I've been on YouTube for 10 years. This is what we've been talking about for all this time, is leading up to this point and preparing yourself to be in a better position today than you were yesterday, than you were 10 years ago. And like Lance Cole talked, having a strategy to get through it. I've laid out my strategy over the years. We were in a subdivision, years ago, moved over and got some land. That was a strategy, getting that ability to grow and raise animals and harvest. Having that was a strategy for what we're dealing with now. So I think Lance Corporal veteran. Kind of go back to that question. The whole last 10 years of this channel and many others has been the strategies that you're talking about of getting through this. The strategy is there. It's to be as able to produce and be as productive as you can outside the system and not as dependent on the system, or not dependent, how do you say it? As little dependence on the system as possible. And so that when it does fall apart, you can either pick up the slack in some other areas, or when it does fall apart, it doesn't matter, because there's so many people that are depending on it that you're the least of the problems. Because it's all debt based and it's not worth anything. It's all fake. Hey, Walter. Walter asked the hard question. The church stepped in to fill the vacuum of the Roman Empire. I wonder what would fill the vacuum of if America should fall. The Antichrist, right, Walter? It's almost like it's a good setup, right? Like the Antichrist and the second coming and the foretold in the future, like the biggest empire after Jesus, the Rome fell, the church filled the vacuum in a certain extent. I don't know, just kind of a comparison. Robert Moore, what's going on? Good to see you. Thanks for checking in. Redneck Prepper says he's set and fully prepped. I don't know. I never make promises or think that highly of myself. I know I'm not, for sure. I know there's a lot of people that are in really good positions, though. There are some people out there that are super stocked to their gills and super ready. Way above most of us. And most of them are on YouTube. There you go. Yeah, right, Lance Corporal veteran. Yeah, last summer showed us a lot. Gave you a lot of examples of what could happen, unexpected. Always be evaluating. I did that video before the election talking about seams and gaps and understand where you fit in the political spectrum in your area, and how what could seem like a calm situation where you are now, if the political situation changes, could get hectic really quick. It's a continuous evaluation, because like last summer, like literally was almost transparent to me, other than they had like 5 people stand outside the state capitol for a couple weekends, and they tried to go to Gardnerville and have a rally, and they basically got ran out of town. Like last summer was almost like if I didn't have the TV on, you didn't even know what was going on. It didn't even matter. So it kind of really depends, but you got to know where you fit in that system, right? And I talked about that before the election, because, and I was talking about that, how because I am so close to the state capitol, if things do go wrong, like it's a point of emphasis for a lot of people to either focus on this place or to go do whatever they're going to do, right? Lone wolf events, or extreme rule law events, all types of things, right? So know where you fit and where you are close to relationship to other things is key too. And what happened last summer should give you an idea, right? I mean, like Milwaukee of all places, who thought Milwaukee was going to blow up? It was Milwaukee, no, Minneapolis. I'm sorry, Minneapolis, the other M city. Minneapolis burns down. Like what? That doesn't make any sense. It's Minneapolis. It's in Minnesota. It's Canada, for crying out loud. Uh, but it gives you example of how one event can trigger things, and especially if it gets hyped up and just things spiral out of control. Depending on what's going on in your local area, there could be pent up anger and frustration at certain things. There's probably a history in Minneapolis that we still don't know about. So, knowing those things in your area and where you fit in varying scenarios, whether political or, other, warfare, whatever, how you think your place will go down and where you fit in that is key as well. And having a strategy to deal with that, like you were asking, because everybody's situation is just so much different. Noble Savage, what's up, friends and neighbors? Looks like we're doing good. We got everybody here on a Thursday night. It's like an old tavern chat, but me talking to myself, kind of. Yeah, Noble, we talked about that 4050, that 450,000 idea, Noble, is just like the most harebrained thing I think we've heard for in a long time. Keep going. Who's this? Psychological warfare matters, both foreign and domestic. EMT Firefighter 9. I think that's like Pennsylvania EMT Firefighter 9. Welcome to chat. I'm just going to think that's what that says, but yeah, welcome to chat. Psychological warfare is very something to, I think, that we've all been exposed to, foreign and domestic, like you said, right? Um, wow, and it's strong. The power is strong on both sides. It's like the whole Q thing, right? Psychological warfare. Like people bought into it. People think that there's been this long group of people embedded in the government who just been waiting for this chance to like do the thing and like take the government back to where it needed to be. Were these people still there during Waco? Were these people there, in all these other events in the last 30, 40 years after Kennedy got shot? Like, if these people existed and they were able to coalesce, like, wouldn't they've already done something? Like the logical thought process that gets people to buy into things like that, and the psychological warfare, right? And it's not saying we all don't get hoodwinked at some point or tricked at some point. It happens to all of us, but that Q thing just baffles the mind. Like, if there was a super secret group of hardcore patriots, like why were they waiting? Why were they waiting until now? The president's just the president's a nobody. Like there's things you can do without the president. Like especially if you're in this super secret government club, right? It's just it makes your head hurt that people bought so hard into that, and they still up to this day. There's all these things that we're still going to get saved. There's people going to get arrested still. Like you can't even talk to those people, right? And that's just a severe form of psychological warfare, and it trickles down to all of our local levels. And everybody here probably knows somebody that like is almost hardcore about it, right? They're almost like dedicated, like Trump is in queue. We're going to get saved. We're going to get Hillary in prison. Like, listen to yourself. You've lost your mind. I, I don't laugh at people when I hear them say things like that, but I don't think so. I think you're off on that. I don't you don't want to I don't know, you don't want to crush people's dreams, I guess, to some extent, but you got to let them down slowly and easily. Like, you might want to back off that and look at reality a little bit and just be like, what is reality? But yeah, we're alone and nobody's coming to save us. That's the reality. That's what we try to push, at least. Hey, right? Yeah, I know a lot of people like that, Lance Corporal. They inside the nuclear family, somebody got the Wuhan, right, and somebody else didn't. They lived in the same household, kids and mom and dad alike, or vice versa. It's because and we'll never know how many of the people that had the Wuhan that tested positive also had the seasonal flu rates were so far down because they weren't testing for it, and when they did dual test for it, It still got reported, especially in the disease reporting for a severe illness or death. It was only the Wuhan that got reported. Um, it's just that whole thing. It's been a manipulated event to take advantage of extreme government actions. That's the only way to explain it at this point. Um, Nobody wants to look at it like that. Everybody wants to blame it on parties and stuff. It's the government as a it's all the governments as a whole. It's from early on, like March, maybe even in early and late February. It was an orchestrated messaging that came out. Orchestrated messaging of all the different actions being taken that everybody was going to do all at once. They rolled out a they rolled out a plan that nobody had written up to that point. I'll tell you that much. Um, so they made the plan up on the fly and rolled that out, and they weren't following protocols that were previously planned. But anyway, um, Rob says the X class fair will probably not even be a noticeable event. Probably. Well, I think like Sakov, the Tabitha, the solar weather lady, ham radio people for sure. Any type of communications possibly could affect, ground communications and TVs. If you're on broadcast or whatever, it could affect those things. Um, Probably will have some effect. Just a matter of which way the Earth's facing when it really swacks us hard. The dog is barking at something out there. Something's made it mad. Maybe it's the coyotes staying away. We'll see. But that X class flare, I would just keep an eye on it. Um, Keep informed on that coming in because you never know. It's it'd be good to go to bed Saturday night with an idea of what do I do if the power isn't on in the morning when I get up. You know, maybe just a thought. Just go through the thought process at least. Oh, good stuff in here in the side chat. Freedom seeds, right? Oh, I think Rob's internet crashed or something. I think I'm behind on the chat. I think you guys are way. I think you guys in the side chat just sped up on me after I talked about tangible goods. That was quite a while ago. Poco Loco, what's up? Up late? I know. I started, I guess, an hour and a half ago, almost. Good to see you, Poco Loco. You still in? You went to Idaho, right? Hope you're doing well. I haven't. I was telling earlier at the beginning, like I haven't watched nearly as many videos as I should. I haven't even put out any videos. So this is our catch up time and just kind of hit all the things, you know. Yeah, you guys talking about salt and silver and gold, and I was talking about that a while back. I'm way behind. Good to see you, Poco Loco. Thanks for checking in. Oh, and Noble Savage hits on another current topic here. Property can become expensive. Inflate your $300,000 home to double or triple and then get it taxed at an inflated rate. Our Treasury Chair and the Fed are conspiring to tax you on unrealized gains. So Yellen, the bankster that's our Treasury chief, which is the biggest conflict of interest known to man, which if you need any more proof that the banksters are running the system, there you go. Um, Yellen floated out Wednesday or something like that. That was yesterday. Doing a tax on unrealized gains, basically taxing on stuff that you have not profited from yet. Uh, Somehow they could have figured this out. I don't know. Their excuse is going to be they're going to say this is how they're going to get billionaires. This is how they're going to get trillionaires and get them to pay their fair share, right? That's going to be their excuse. But what they're going to do is you and me, we have a $300,000 house, like Noble was talking about. They inflate the currency to the point to where our house is worth $500,000 because they've dumped all this inflationary money in. They've caused hyperinflation. They tax you on that $200,000 unrealized gain because you bought it at 300. You're paying your mortgage for $300,000. Somebody says it's worth 500. They're going to tax you on $200,000 at probably like 20% or something. You're not going to be able to come up with $40,000. They foreclose your home, bank takes your home, bank owns everything. That's the goal of this whole shebang to begin with, and how they're going to try to get the banks in control of everything before it collapses. If they can, they're trying to hit that Overton window in the shift of where the banks are able to hyperinflate and buy real stuff, buy property, buy real things, buy oil fields, buy water rights, buy all these real things with hyperinflated currency from the banks before it collapses. That's what these bankers are doing. That's the ultimate their goal. That's their plan now at this point. I think it's taken them. It took them 100 years to figure that all out. They knew at the beginning, like, we can have power with inflationary currency when the Fed was created, right? And over time, they developed this plan of, okay, well, as we go through this, we know this isn't going to last forever. We know this is not a stable, long lasting system. It is going to collapse. And you had multiple market crashes to kind of lay that out there for them. Like, but as we gain and inflate and get real property for real value with this stuff we make up out of thin air, debt that we just made up and gave the government this authority, like, okay, here's your money, here's your currency. They're getting property, farms, water. They're raking all this stuff in, and they have the ultimate control, where they were controlling in debt, then they control in real goods and services, right? That's the thing, Noble. When you talk about that, and that whole taxing unrealized gains as a means to foreclose on America right under their noses, under the name of taxation and making people pay their fair share. They will steal everything from everybody. That's that's where they're going. That's the and we talk about a strategy, Lance Corporal veteran. I don't know the strategy to get away from that other than unmitigated violence. Is about the only way to get out of that. You know, make them. They're going to have to feel a lot of pain to make them stop. I don't know if we can galvanize enough people quickly enough to fight back on that one. Strategies, right? Strategies. In Minecraft, of course. The joke. Hey, M Long 5151, what's going on? Auto parts are a good prep, right? That is a good prep, M Long. Good to see you. You still driving the boats? You've probably put out a video of boat race and I didn't even see it. I don't know. Holy smokes, Robert. You've bought 8,000 primers in the last few months? I bought 8,000 primers back in like 2010. I'm good. I have not had to deal with those prices, fortunately. My buddy got into reloading and was looking for some last year, back before, after it loosened up. It had been really tight and then it started loosening up. And he was looking for some and he just getting started. And I showed him my price tags on my primer boxes and he about shot me. Excuse me. Goodness. Wash that down real quick. Sorry. Goodness. Ah. Yeah, powder's thin too, Robert. Powder is thin, hard to find. Goodness. That went down the wrong pipe for sure. Ah. I wish I could find the mute button. I don't know where the mute button is. Oh, I'm gonna pass out here. Yeah, Walter, it's good to see everybody in the chat, man. We haven't had one this good since one of the good morning ones, right? Rob is back. Ah, goodness. I am way behind in the chat. Let's see. JJ says growing trees on land is a good way to hold land. Lumber will always be needed. Right, JJ? Yep. More so back your way. It's kind of hard to do that out here. It's hard to get lumber quality trees out here in the high desert. 88 Mark, what's going on? Good to see you. Come aboard. Permission granted. Welcome back. Good to see you, Mark. Already up you on the side chat. Welcome aboard. Man, how far behind am I? What time is it? Oh, goodness, I'm 14 minutes behind in the side chat. You guys are tearing it up. Well, they lacking. AJ Sparks, what's up? I'm going to have to catch up real quick. Sorry, guys. I would like to comment on all the comments, but I want to catch up and kind of start wrapping this up because this has been a long time. Trust the plan, right, Sparks? Yeah, I must have been talking about Q about right there. So let me see if I missed anybody else checking in before I catch up in the chat. Fuddy Duddy's House of Chill. Welcome to the chat. That's a new channel name I have not seen. CME is en route. Yep. Be aware. Yeah, I'm way behind. Oh. Liberty Garden's back with us. It's part of the own nothing agenda, right? Yep. Only the bank can own it, and even the governments won't have control. You won't eat meat, and you'll be happy, right? Yeah, I keep harping on vegetarians, right? On the Twitter, I keep hitting them hard. Like they keep making this Beyond Meat. It's like, why do you make your vegetables look like meat if you like vegetables so much? Eat your vegetables and be happy. If you have to make your vegetables look like meat to eat it, you have a problem. Oh, just it's a mental illness. Having to make your vegetables look like a meat. Right? Yeah, I'm choking on the way behind. You guys have got good comments though. Lots of good stuff to talk about. Fake CME says Red October. Well, there's an X-class flare, right? Red October. How do you see it's fake? It may not be the coronal mass ejection that takes everything out, but it is one nonetheless, and we'll see what effects it has and which side of the Earth it hits. I think our advantages is we're into winter, so we're facing away. We're starting to tilt back, away from the sun. So if we're facing the sun when it comes, it might like skip over us and South America take more of the brunt of it if we're the side facing the sun at the time. That's my logical mind thinking about it. I'm caught up. Yeah, catching up to the side chat's always a goal, right? Throw a knife at it, Red. Throw a knife at it. That'll take it out, right? Yeah, the environmental emergency is noble, right? Like that whole thing's the psyop of control because they're trying to use that to tax people to keep people poor, right? They're trying to use it to keep government in control of resources, which keeps everybody else poor. Um, you know, that whole environmental agenda is nothing more than controlling people. There's so much property out here in Nevada that could be realized for prosperity that is being held back by the government. And that's just Nevada. Um, imagine all the other states, especially the West. It's severe. Um, that unrealized gain, economic diversification and expansion. If the government could get out of the way, so many problems that could be solved when it comes to things like water usage, electricity, um, all those things. But the government's been in the way, and as the government has been subsidizing bad ideas for so long. Uh, Ideas that like, hey, it's good to test this stuff out, right? It's good to test out wind energy and solar energy, but what's going to get to the top? Well, they never gave it the chance to compete because they kept subsidizing things that weren't successful, and they kept dumping money into bad places. and like nuclear, something that they frighten everybody about, but yet is the cleanest solution. They're not investing any cash or any money or any effort into making nuclear, or now you talk about fission, fusion, yeah, fusion, right? Fission, the opposite of nuclear reactors, right? They're not putting any effort into learning about how cold fusion can actually be the solution. They're ignoring things like that are really have potential because the government and somebody's profiting of it. All these the corruption is so deep, right? The corruption and that whole deal, because everybody knows that this train's going to end. This hyperinflation deal is real, and everybody knows that they have to get theirs, no matter which party they're in, on which side they're in. Once they come to the reality that this, the musical chairs is going to end, and how much, you know, real things you have at the end is going to determine your place in the pecking order when things go to the other side, whatever is on the other side. Everybody's fighting for scraps at that point, right? MREs last at least 30 years, says hit Rob Painless. I've got some 95 MREs. I'm close to 30 years. I think I got 95 or 96. I know I got some 2000s. I got some that are 20 years old. But as long as you keep them stored well, not getting really hot, not freezing, they do pretty good. And even if they have been exposed, there's still enough dry goods in a lot of MREs. You got the crackers, you got the beverage-based powder. You still got good things in there to pull out of there. Cookies, the bread. Um, Even if they have not been stored very well, if you get a bad main meal, the main meal's went bad, pull that other stuff out of there and eat it. I mean, I hold on to my MREs until I eat them. I don't easily. I've got stuff that's over 20 years old. It's good to see everybody. Yeah, another big lie to the people, another psyop on the people, aliens. I know people think that aliens are out there. There's no aliens. The aliens are a psyop, I'm telling you. Aliens are part of Project Bluebeam so they can distract the populace from bigger, more important things. I'm just telling you, aliens don't exist. If there may be, oh, hold on. There may be aliens out there, but they've not come to Earth, and they have not superior in all this technology to where they can visit Earth and travel interdimensionally and stuff like that. That's just not happening. Oh, uh-oh. Mark's getting his comment. Did somebody give him passage through, I guess? The moderator's doing the moderating job. Good work out there. I may have missed his. Let me go back and see what he said. You would rather chew your arm off? That was censored? Oh, wait, it was before that. Oh, I must have missed it. I was just rolling through. Did it get through? Mark's comment about sea rats in the Korean War? Is that what Mark's comment got censored? Got put on hold? Poco Loco. They're real. They just won't visit us. All right. Yeah, who knows, Mark? I don't know. There's no like restrictions on the chat. I don't have it set. You can go in and set settings for like kid friendly and stuff. I don't have any of that set, so it's a YouTube algorithm thing. They have it set at a certain thing, I think. Doesn't Wiki doesn't want you to know about sea rats. We probably got flagged now because Mark's talking about sea rats. Great. This will be a first time for everything. I've not got flagged. I don't think I've ever been flagged for anything. I've been, I think I've been copyrighted, but I've never been flagged for anything. And we get flagged for sea rats of all things. What are the odds? It might be time to hang it up. We'll just quit now while we're ahead. Hey, good to see you, Redneck Prepper. Have a good evening. Have a good weekend. Like I said, tomorrow we're off here. Tomorrow's Nevada Day, so it's kind of late. So we're up kind of late, just doing the thing. Um, Seeing how long this phone can hang on. Got it charging, so I think we're charged is good. I guess they're gonna let us run this forever. As long as we're charged is good. Sea rats, sea rats, sea rats. Who knows? Right, Rob? Depends on how you spell it or say it. It's that English language thing. It's hard to learn. Yeah, right. Bikes. They have people actually, physical people monitoring chats and other things. Yeah, that's true. Somebody somewhere. I don't know if this one has got somebody monitoring. And we've been going long enough. We got quite a few thumbs up. They probably dropped by and dropped in and out, or they hung around like, hey, this isn't kosher. Put the kibosh on these guys. These guys are off the rails. Let's go, Brandon. Says PA. If yeah, we talked about let's go, Brandon, earlier. Yeah, I was just lamenting for Brandon Brown, like his whole life moment winning at Talladega just got like sidelined. Oh man, that's pretty funny stuff though. It's had its 10 minutes of fame. It's time to move on. But if your name is Brandon, now's your year to strike. You can do it, Brandon. We have faith in you. All right, I caught back up again. All right, guys, it's an hour and 40 in. This went way longer, and I enjoyed it thoroughly. It's good to see everybody. Lots of good comments, lots of good back and forth after I finally caught up. But kind of just to reverse, for those of you who missed the beginning, um, the main point I got out at the beginning is the financial destabilization or collapse, or however you want to look at it. The financial severity, the severe distress our financial system is in is the big issue, and it's getting kind of overlooked with all this Wuhan and the "Let's Go Brandon" talk that kind of dominate everything these days. Uh, the 20-year yield and the 30-year yield crossed um, yesterday, and it kind of got just buried. It just you can't even. The only story I found on it was on Yahoo Finance. It wasn't in CNBC, Bloomberg. I didn't see a storyline for it anywhere else. But that 30-year going yield curve being below the 20-year is like the big event that everybody's been warning about for decades now, since I've been on YouTube and previously, as far as financial destabilization and instability, and being concerned about future follow-on effects. Like 2 years ago, the 6 month and the 1 year crossed for a period of time, and the 3 month and the 2 year and stuff like that happened on the front end of the yield curve when it comes to borrowing money and the value of money, if you will, because they're really a treasury yield is about the value of money. As that 30-year yield drops that low, they're telling you in the future the dollar is going to be worthless. It's what that's indicating. That in real terms, that yield is telling you that in 30 years the dollar is going to be worth so much less than it is now that they're not even willing to pay you. And that's when they get into negative yields in the future and really big problems for governments and banks to figure out how to balance the books. And that's why the banks want to get to that real property and get this hyperinflation thing going so they can get that real property and snatch it out of people's hands. Um, Bill Gates buying property, buying farms, right? They want that stuff because that's the only thing that matters. Real stuff is what's going to win in the future. It's always won. Real things is what's always been. It's only been this last 50 years or so where hypothetical value, unrealized income, unrealized value has been profitable. It's not been possible for computers and these digits on computers. These notional terms have not really been, you know, in real effect. The tulip mania of the Netherlands way back when was a short-term spike, hyperinflation, and crash. They've been able to string this thing out for 100 years. Um, so they're seeing that they're trying to get to real property, but that story on the 20-year yield and 30-year yield crossing, um, was what really stoked me to do this chat, because that financial system collapse, the economic collapse, the financial system was what really got me started on the prepping in YouTube. It was one of my primary subjects way back when, and I've not got off of that subject ever since. It's, we've done a lot of things on here. We've done a lot of different, we've been involved in a lot of things. We've went a lot of places, but that's been what the prepping has been all about, has been this financial system is not for the long haul. And we seem to be living at the end of it. I don't see how I don't see how does this struggle on another year, 2 years, 3 years. The only way it gets through is people's faith. As long as people still have faith that they're gonna get something for the dollars they hold, and that's why we talked about cash coming out from mattresses earlier as well. Um, when people start throwing that hyperinflation at money and at real goods and real services, when that's what's going to cause that values of real things to go up and up and up, just like we see property now and houses, real things going up and up and up. It's going to happen to everything else too, because people are going to realize the cash is worthless. The digits on the computer aren't, they're definitely not worth 30,000. What's a Bitcoin now? 42,000? I don't know. Bitcoin's been all over the place. It's 40,000 and something for digits on a computer. That is insane. Like, yeah, I might be able to exchange that digit on a computer for something real. How is that real in people's mind? I mean, I get that you can use things as a currency, but to place such a value on currency, because still you think about it, they're placing the value on one Bitcoin is the same as an annual wage for a lot of people. That's insane, right? Unless, well, if you extrapolate across the world population, um, then if you know then my conspiracy side says that Bitcoin is just a CIA created currency to get people used to electronic currencies, and they're going to take over Bitcoin and institute their own currency once everybody's accustomed to electronic currencies. My conspiracy. So, but everybody that missed the beginning, that's kind of what we started talking about, was the financial system distress and the those yield curve issues to pay attention to, not just let's go Brandon, and not just whatever local politician thing is going on, um, or the Wuhan that dominates everything, the Wuhan that's still this big threat that has yet to. I mean, yeah, people that have gotten sick, people have been hospitalized, some people have died. Yes, that's what happens when an unknown virus gets in the population that's we're not accustomed to. Extreme government rule of law is not the answer to solve those problems. Governments cannot solve viruses. Governments can empower you and give you tools and give you information, but they can't solve it. So, anyway, thanks everybody. Appreciate the comments. You guys are awesome. You know what to do. Prep hard, live free. If I can figure out how to turn this thing off. Oh, yeah, let's see. Hey, Vborg, what's up? I'm trying to turn this thing off, and Vborg checks in. Good to see you, Vborg. We're checking out if I can figure out how to do it. And we're out. No, no. Ah, come on. Where's the button? Where is that button? You may know where that button's at. And no, that's not it either. Okay, there we go.